Coincidence or not, I was literally asked this question the other day, and asked it again today that I'm filming. Um, I'd done a podcast the other day where the guy asked me, I think it was curbside collection. I'll try to link down his Instagram down below, so y'all can find it when it actually comes out. Curbside collection. Anyway, he had asked me, were there any Blu-rays that I had regretted buying? And then someone in my comment section of a recent video was like, asked the same question. Is there anything I regret buying? And the answer is always yes. But there's kind of wiggle room around it. Like initially the video that I had filmed like a year or two ago, I had talked about a film called Death Warmed Up, which is a low budget New Zealand film, and it was a local Australian, I think it was Umbrella, maybe Madman release. Where are you, Death Warmed Up? I know you're here somewhere. Death Warmed Up. It's an Umbrella release. It's right behind me. Anyway, it was a release of a film much like I'd say Black Christmas from 101 Films as well, and Wild Things on 4K, the Arrow video release. There's probably others. There's definitely others. Films that I've bought with the interest of seeing them and hoping that they're actually, well, hoping that they're good for one thing, but knowing that there's like a lot of effort and stuff put into it, whether it be the release or whether it be the film itself, and I've watched them and the film's like, but the release is pretty good. There was the Primevals, which from Umbrella recently, which I just bought the standard version, and I didn't care much for the film, but it's got a great selection of like special features and stuff. There's a lot of effort put into the actual, basically, history of making of the film, which I really appreciate. Whether I get around to watching them, I don't know, but it's just nice to have them, even though I could have just waited a couple more months and the standard release would still be a standard release, just without a slipcover, so I kind of prefer that I got the slipcover one. Rather than the big limited edition that they had on their website, which had already sold out. So, Death Warmed Up was one I got a couple years ago. That's one where, again, I regret buying it, but also not really. I had a couple people angry at the fact that I had said that I regret buying films, and they're like, you should never regret buying films. I'm like, no, you can regret buying films. You can do whatever you want. In this case, I don't really. It's more or less. It's like an educational level to it. Much like with Zombie Flesh Eaters when I bought that from Arrow Video, which I then bought the 4K for Zombie, I didn't like the film. Same with Death Warmed Up. But there's a huge difference. I haven't rewatched Death Warmed Up. That's the huge difference. The factor is going into both of those films, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't understand the genre, not just horror, not just like I'd say non-Australian horror, because Death Warmed Up is New Zealand, and the other one is an Italian film. But it's the understanding of how the film works in the principle of its location, in its direction, the way that it's budgeted, the way that style of film was done at the time. Low-budget New Zealand horror films, you think like Dead Alive and whatever. Great, good for you. I haven't seen it, because it's so hard to find. And so because of that, my knowledge of like low-budget New Zealand horror films outside of like The Quiet Earth doesn't really exist. And it's like, I don't have that education for it. Like, I don't have the knowledge to go into it being like, this is what I should expect, because I understand this part of film history and how it works and how it developed films. Like watching noir films set during the 1940s, you understand that there's a precedence of anxiety in the air because of the war. It's like 80s horror films when it comes to like the AIDS epidemic and stuff like that, or like the late 80s when it comes to the overabundance of slasher films, and even just understanding film structures from just like the conception to the end of all parody, because things run out in terms of just ideas, so you parody it, then you go back to the start again. I understand that kind of stuff, but sometimes you watch a film, you just don't know what you're watching. When I watched Zombie Flesh Eaters, I hated it. I watched it with my partner, and we were sold on the concept, and I had already bought the Blu-ray, we were sold on the concept of the most grotesque horror film, the zombie film that you've ever seen, the best looking effects in a zombie film, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, that's great. I love effects work. I love like the Day of the Dead films, the Romero zombie films. Anything that Tom Savini's done. So I was going into it with like, this is going to be great effects. not really realizing the story is not going to be like a traditional zombie film. And that was similar to Deformed Up. It's got great effects, but the story is difficultly paced. It's strange to watch it because it's not conventional with its filmmaking. And the same was for like Zombie Flesh Eaters. We were quite bored. I don't remember a lot of my experience of watching Deformed Up outside of the fact that I thought it was boring and I didn't like it that much. For Zombie Flesh Eaters, at least, I remember it because I remember it like it was yesterday. It was just a grueling experience of, man, this film's really boring. Why is this so bad? And, why do people love it so much? Now, at least for Zombie Flesh Eaters, I rewatched it, I think this year actually, got the 4K. And the fact that I bought the 4K despite not liking the film is just hilarious to me. But that wasn't what influenced me into liking the film more. I understood what it was doing now because I had watched a bunch of Fulci films. I'd watched a lot more Italian horror films, especially zombie films. So by the time I got around to watching it, not just had I watched the precursors of like most of Fulci's work, especially his zombie films and his giallos, but I understood what the fuck I was meant to be watching. And this wasn't just oh, well, you're watching it for the second time. Of course you know what you're going to expect. It's like, no, but there's an understanding of the style of the genre that you don't always get, You can have a film that is insanely popular in a cult style because of this. Like watching The Room and not understanding that it's a comedy. There are so many films that there was so much context that sometimes you need to know to understand before you go into watching the film that you need. So hence, I still maybe, regret buying Deformed Up, but at the same time, I cannot even speak properly today. If I rewatch that film with the context of what, the actual style of the genre is, I might appreciate it more. I might be like, you know what, this is not a 1-star film anymore, it's a 5-star film. Probably not, but, I will have a dramatic improvement of my reception towards the film because I've put in the work to understand what its style is like, to understand how it got to this point, And that's one of the things that you kind of think that you take for granted when it comes to watching films, that you will just enjoy a film because you're buying it, because you're watching it, because you like one of the actors or the directors or something like that, or because it's known as the greatest version of this or the greatest that or the best this or whatever it is, that you're going to like it because you also like things that are similar. But it's very different, I couldn't suggest Zombie Flesh Eaters to my parents because they'd be like, this is boring. What the fuck is going on? Where are the zombies? And I'm like, it gets there. The final act is great, and I still love the final act on rewatch, but I like the early half now. I understand what it's going for. I understand the style, the creepiness to it, and everything. So those are two. Wild Things was one that I don't regret buying it, technically. I just don't regret... I regret buying the version I bought. What I bought, and I guess this kind of counts for something like, if you would, Imprint's version of The Warriors or Wicker Man and stuff like that. It's the factor of buying this premium limited edition version and then watching it and being like, maybe not. The reason I don't want to bundle those up is because for Wild Things, I wasn't as ho-hum about the film, and I bought a deluxe Arrow Video steelbook release, and it looks insanely good, but I didn't care that much for the film, and for that reason, I'm like, I shouldn't have spent like $90 on this fucking movie. Realistically, I should resell it, give it to someone who actually wants the premium edition version, and just buy a standard 4K down the road. I'd be okay with that. But something like Imprint's versions of The Warriors, and I'm pointing to where they are on my shelf, and The Wicker Man, those were a bit of an annoying thing, because The Warriors I'd never seen, and they released this set, beautiful set, both cuts, bunch of special features. A year, and probably not even a year later, Arrow comes out with their 4K UHD, and I'm like, for fuck's sake, I just bought the goddamn Blu-ray. That's one of those times where you'll regret a film and be like, I've just bought it from a different boutique. What the fuck? And that, at least for The Warriors, I still love the Imprint set, but I did end up buying the standard 4K for The Warriors, which is the theatrical release, and it looks sensational. It looks and sounds amazing. It comes with the extra Arrow special features, but I also have all the extra stuff that, that that imprint already had. Do I regret not buying like the limited edition because I missed out? Not really. It's a great looking set, but I'm content with the version I have. At least with the Wicker Man, it's like someone else did a set. I think it was just Studio Canal ended up doing a 4K UHD after they had already done they did like a steelbook and everything, and I already had their original version, and then I bought the imprint one because it came with more special features and everything, and it had all 3 cuts. Even though I had the final cut, I don't know if I had. No, I had all 3 cuts. I still have that Blu-ray. I haven't been able to resell it, but my original Blu-ray for that has all 3 cuts, and so did the imprint version. And then less than a year later, Studio Canal comes out with another edition, which is a 4K UHD, all completely remastered for each version of the film or whatever, with more special features and a glorious set and some amazing artwork and stuff. And I still love the Wicker Man set for its artwork, and I'm not going to buy another goddamn version of the film. I'm content with the version I have. But at the same time, it's like, damn, that would have been nice. And I ain't gonna go to JB and just buy the local import version of the Studio Canal 4K release just so I can have the UHD disc, because I'm like, I'm good. Most of it's set during the daytime anyway. It doesn't really. It could benefit, sure. Why not? The Warriors sure did. Benefited a lot from UHD disc, but yeah. But that's also kind of on par with the other one I had, which was Black Christmas, because I bought the 101 Films release because there wasn't any other. I don't think there was any other release. I didn't know much about Scream Factory at the time, and I don't know if I even had a Region 8 player by that stage. So I bought their version. I think it was a standard version. I don't think it was a limited edition. It came with a poster and reversible artwork and whatever. And I watched it, and I just didn't like the print. It was ugly. Their Black Christmas 101 Films print was just terrible. And it's not the worst, but it's not great. And it still had some good special features and whatever, but I ended up upgrading to the Scream Factory 4K UHD, which, ironically, still haven't watched it. I did actually take a look at it on Christmas last year, because me and my mates actually went out to the Astor local theatre, big screen theatre. They were playing it for Christmas. One of their Christmas films was Black Christmas. Pretty sure it was like a DVD copy. Whatever it was like a similar transfer to what 101 Films already had. But it was just the experience of seeing it in the theatre and just kind of having that vibe really worked for me. Really made me really love and appreciate the film so much more than the yucky Blu-ray I already had. And, I ended up coming home, putting on the 4K just to take a look at the transfer, and I was like, holy shit, this transfer looks amazing. It looks so much better than both the version I'd seen in the cinema and the version I had previously owned on Blu-ray. I ended up giving that version, the 101 Films one, to a friend. Gave it to my friend because I'm like, I don't want this, you don't have it, there you go. You love this film. I don't yet, but then I did a couple weeks later or whatever. Maybe the same goddamn day. I don't even remember, but either way, I gave it to them. They now have it. It's their problem. But it came with the same special features. I think the Scream Factory edition had maybe 1 or 2 extras, but for the most part they were very similar. It was just a better transfer, and I think a better audio mix as well. So as it was just an upgrade in just all regions. So I was very happy with that. And also my friend doesn't have a 4K UHD player, so it wouldn't have benefited them. But yeah, at least if they have it, easy peasy. So, yeah, there are films I regret buying for either the edition I've bought where I realized I didn't need to cop out for a limited edition, I could have just waited for a standard one, or I've bought a film in such a premium edition realizing that actually I don't really care that much for the film, I don't know what encouraged me to buy it initially, for whatever FOMO, whatever the crap it was, and just the artwork looked nice, I don't know, and then I've just been like, now it's just sitting on the shelf gathering dust because I've watched it once, didn't care for it, and I don't want to watch it again. So, there are definitely occasions as well, same as the lack of education towards a specific genre or style of film that has really changed. And the benefit of buying so many films, or having the accessibility, I should say, to be able to watch so many films, can give you the incentive to really study it. I spent all of February this year watching, I think it was in the end, 29 giallo films, some of which were rewatches, 2 or 3, maybe 4, and most of those I hadn't seen since like 5 or 6 years early, and they were like early. They're probably most famous of Argento's works. But I had a bunch of films from Bava, the Fulci, all these all these goddamn giallos I hadn't seen before, and I wanted to really look into the genre. Did I do it per date? I don't even know what the hell I did. I did it in such a random ass order that I was going from this date to that date, from late 70s to early 60s and back and forth. I don't know why I did any of that. However I structured it was bad, but at the end, it gave me perspective on how the genre evolved. It's like watching slasher films from like Halloween through to New Nightmare, you know? Like, if you were to spend, or even just Halloween to Halloween H2O, like, seeing how the genre evolved from its basically inception, not exactly, because of course we all know slasher films predated Halloween, but going from there to going through the craze of the highs and the lows, and then the rebirth and the parodies and everything. And, like, understanding how that stuff works is what's so amazing about films. For me, it's not always just watching it because it's enjoyable to watch. Sometimes I like to actually understand what I'm watching, you know, enjoy it for what it added and contributed to film history. And that's stuff that really interests me. So yeah, sure, I do regret buying a film like, you know, Death Warmed Up and Wild Things, but at the same time, it's giving me more perspective, from the erotic thriller to New Zealand horror, you know. So in retrospect, I don't really regret buying an actual film. And this is coming from a guy who owns Cannibal Holocaust on 4K. Like, I don't regret buying actual films. I just regret buying editions of films. Except for Death Warmed Up, I still regret buying that for some reason. But that wasn't expensive. It was like $20. Like it's just the fact that I didn't like the film. But if I rewatched it with the context of understanding all the things that predated it, that went into it, all this kind of stuff, I might actually really enjoy it. Like something like the Primevals, I could enjoy more on rewatch. Whatever, I could enjoy it a lot more if I watched all the special features, understood all the heart and soul that went into it, and still went like boring ass film. But I appreciate the hustle. So yeah, that's the benefit for me, at least for physical media, that despite the fact that I could spend a lot of money on a film or a release of a film or film series and then be like, it was alright in the end, but at least I have the opportunity to watch it. So no matter what, we have the opportunity to watch this stuff because physical media exists. So no matter how critical you could be of either price or the content or whatever the hell is on the actual disc, we have it. We have it in our hands. I should grab one to whip out. We have it in our hands. I got a lot of Dracula films. But yeah, so end all be all. It's still a pleasure and a privilege to own this stuff and to have them in such finesse detail, especially something like Wild Things, 4K. Whew. But like, yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all. Let me know down below if you regret buying any films, whether it be a specific release that then a year later got a different release coming out, or however it be. Is it the standard, I bought this on Blu-ray, I've been waiting for years for a 4K, and then like a month later the 4K comes out, or at least gets announced. That's one of those great regrets where you're like, God fucking damn it, I could have waited another year for Twister. Ugh. It's alright, I only spent $10 on it. There's no harm, no foul. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Adios.